Hi, everybody. We're going to give it about a minute or so for people to join the call, and then we'll get started. And while we're waiting, if members of the press could put their affiliation in their name on Zoom, that would be greatly appreciated. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kelly Osterman. I'm one of the co-presidents of Graduate Assistants United, and I'm a doctoral candidate in the Department of Mechanical Engineering. First of all, we're happy to see our supporters in attendance. As this is a formal press conference, we're asking our supporters to please contact us directly at bargaining@usfgau.org if you have any questions about current negotiations. Second, we'd like to thank the TBT, Politico, Florida Phoenix, and Creative Loafing for being here today. If any other press are here, please let us know in the chat and again, add it to your name. We'll take questions from the press at approximately 1:20 or 1:25-ish. So we've called this press conference today to bring to light the USF administration's bad behavior in the collective bargaining process. We wanted to begin bargaining for our new labor contract last fall, but the USF administration refused to meet with us until January. At that meeting, the administration insisted upon the importance of bringing calendars to sessions so we could schedule follow-up meetings before we leave the table. We had our own calendars prepared, but the administration refused to follow through on its own demands, instead insisting on scheduling via email. They then stalled us for 2 months, long before COVID-19 began to cause economic problems. Our second round of negotiations was scheduled for late March, but it was canceled by USF. The administration then continued to stall until USFGAU released our first press release in early May. A reporter reached out to the administration for comment, and within 2 hours of their email, USF finally set a date for our second bargaining session. 119 days passed between the first and second bargaining sessions. When we finally got back to the table, USF refused to talk money. We began by discussing non-monetary proposals and offered several concessions in the hopes of making progress on the issues that our members care about. But USF stonewalled nearly all of our proposals. Then in mid-July, 7 months into the process and after the official expiration of our contract, the administration was finally willing to talk money. We put together a detailed financial package summarizing our modest requests, but they totally ignored our proposal and gave us an ultimatum. They want us to suspend negotiations for a year, to freeze salaries for a year, and to raise the amount that GAs are required to pay into their health insurance. Last week, at our most recent session, they insisted that they had already given us, and I quote, their best proposal, unquote. Their best proposal was literally the first offer they gave us. And they did that while gaslighting us and issuing thinly veiled threats. To increase the cost of our healthcare during a pandemic threatens the health and well-being of our entire community. This proposal is not good for GAs, the USF community, or the city of Tampa. As a public university, USF should be focused on the public good, not threatening to harm some of the most vulnerable members of our community. That is why we're holding this press conference. We are asking the public to call and email USF's president and board of trustees and urge them to find the money to invest in the health and safety of over 2,000 graduate assistants. Thank you. Our next speaker is Elizabeth Kiebel, the other co-president of GAU and a doctoral candidate in the psychology department.
Thank you, Kelly, and thanks everyone for being here today. I wanted to speak today about the importance of USF fully covering our healthcare premiums for the 2020 to 2021 school year. As everyone is aware, we're facing a serious health crisis in the United States. No age group is safe from COVID-19's most severe health effects, which can lead to hospitalization, long-term respiratory illness and disability, and even death. Importantly, COVID-19 is affecting Florida residents more than most, as the number of cases in our state is currently the second highest in the nation. Recent figures show that 182 cases of the virus have already been linked to our campus, and we're ranked seventh highest in the nation on this issue, despite our remaining in phase 1 of reopening at this point. As of now, the university still plans to offer a wide variety of in-person classes in the fall, many of which could be easily offered in an online or virtual format. My fall 2020 teaching assignment in the Department of Psychology is one of those courses. I have asked for permission from the university to teach online, and I have yet to hear a reply from them. I'm scared for myself, for my students, for the people that I live with, and for the vulnerable people in my community. At USF, hundreds of administrators and faculty are making hundreds of thousands of dollars while working safely from their homes or isolated in their offices. And yet, graduate students who cannot afford any lengthy unpaid leave or even a short-term hospital stay are expected to be on the front lines teaching half of the courses that are offered at USF. This is all in the service of the university's ability to advertise, and I quote, an environment in and out of the classroom that offers more options than ever so that you, the students, can have an excellent fall semester. Our health and safety appears to ride on the whims and preferences of college freshmen and other undergraduates who clearly do not understand the public risk of this virus if they prefer to enroll in face-to-face courses rather than learning from the safety of their homes. USF administrators tell us that they do not have control over the cost of our healthcare premiums or the insufficient level of coverage that is offered to us. Be that as it may, USF can decide how much of our premium costs they're willing to fund, regardless of the date that they sign an agreement with our healthcare consortium. We maintain that it is the least that USF can do during a life-threatening pandemic to cover the full cost of our healthcare premiums after USF has signed on to a healthcare plan with an out-of-pocket maximum that is more than twice the cost of enrollment. To suggest that we are unwilling to pay our fair share of our healthcare is blatantly untrue. We are being asked to unnecessarily put our lives on the line to appease incoming and returning students' learning preferences in order to maintain enrollment. This is a reminder once again that USF cannot work unless we do. USF GAU has consistently come to the table ready to compromise and bargain in good faith, and yet the USF administration has told us that nothing that we say or do will change their current offer, one that does not satisfy even one of our economic requests, and instead requires us to pay more for our healthcare than we have in several years. Stonewalling is not the same as bargaining, and if nothing that we say can move you, USF, you have not heard our pleas, or USF admin. We are asking the president of USF and the board of trustees to show us in some small way that we are valuable. Recognize that we are not just giving you our time and our labor. Some of us will also be giving you our good health, our safety, and possibly even our lives. USF administration, find the money. All right, so I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Krystle Lemonias. She is an organizer for USF GAU and is also a graduate student in the visual arts department at USF.
Hello everyone. Today I'm here to share with you how the MOU proposed by the USF administration will affect me and others in my department. Recently, after the bargaining session, I reviewed my living expenses and how much I would be earning in my assistantship. In the coming semester, after this quick overview, I was in shock that the university feels it fair to ask GAs to cover about $174 annually due to a national increase in health insurance. So many are experiencing financial strife, and I am thankful to be employed, but I will not be exploited. It is unreasonable to expect GAs to take on an additional expense while running remote or hybrid classes. In our experience, these classes require more time than we are being compensated for. The visual art department is one of the lowest paid GAs at USF, even more so after semester fees are paid. I and many of my colleagues in my department have part-time employment to cover our living expenses and purchase or supplies for projects. Personally, to make ends meet, once a month, I volunteer at a community garden and food pantry in exchange for 2 weeks of groceries. My GA income is only able to cover the modest apartment that I share with a roommate and my internet bill. GAs like me can't afford any more. It's more difficult than ever for anyone to find employment to cover additional expenses. So this may push GAs to be uninsured. The least USF administration can do is to cover the health insurance for its GAs. considering the public's health at risk. Last semester, we all abruptly left campus for more than half the semester. The campus facilities were not being used. At the least, we are owed our department fees for the facilities not used. In addition, USF was able to give the on-campus officers a raise. Aren't we just as valuable, or I dare say, more valuable than the officers? Visual arts GAs administer a significant portion of classes as well as maintain student workshops. We manage the Carolyn Wilson Gallery, assist with installations of student exhibitions, and monitor machinery in the undergrad workspaces. We are often the first contact students have to ask questions and voice concerns. Though associate professors play important roles in structuring undergrad learning, GAs in the visual arts department see to carrying out these objectives. USF administration needs to bargain in good faith. USF works because GAs do. Our next speaker is Shivam Shukla, an undergraduate student at USF.
Good afternoon. My name is Shivam Shukla, and I'm an undergrad studying environmental science here at the university. Over my 2 semesters at USF, almost every class I took had some sort of graduate teaching assistant. They taught my discussion sections, they led my science labs, and they responded to my questions at 1 a.m. the night before an exam. And when I saw my university's administration treating them with such disrespect and disregard, especially during last week's bargaining meeting, I was disgusted. The conditions that our grad assistants work in are the conditions that we undergrads learn in. This university cannot expect to provide a quality environment for its students to get an education if it doesn't provide a quality environment for its educators to teach. This means providing cost-free health insurance to promote public health on campus. This means ensuring a wage sufficient enough to pay rent. This means treating workers with respect and dignity. When I was at my undergraduate orientation, I probably heard the university say that they are a preeminent research university about 50 times. Yet, while they proudly tout this label, they refuse to realize that graduate students are the very reason they have that honor. It's the countless hours and endless nights of research and lab work that graduate students put in that makes this university what it is today. And Steve Carell and the administration want to turn their backs on them. To truly uphold their values of being a high impact university, it is essential that they treat the very people who make this university work with respect and dignity. Threatening to cut pay in an economic crisis is not respect and dignity. Hiring a corporate union-busting legal team to talk with students is not respect and dignity. Decreasing access to healthcare in the middle of a pandemic is not respect and dignity. I pay thousands of dollars every year to attend USF and get an education. And the fact that this money goes to line the pockets of administration executives like Judy Genshaft, who doesn't even work at the university anymore, instead of going to the people who are actually teaching me, is appalling. And as an undergrad, makes me ashamed of my university. Thank you. And our next speaker is Joanna Lawler, the treasurer of GAU and social psychology PhD student.
On February 8th, 2017, I shakily ascended the steps to my apartment, shuffled to my bathroom, and vomited in the toilet. I was a 22-year-old social psychology PhD student whose body had been pushed past its limits by plasma donation. Just 6 months prior, I was a recent college graduate who had been thrilled to start the next chapter of my life at USF. I was fortunate to have received a full tuition scholarship to college. I was fortunate to have some savings left over from the 2 minimum wage jobs that I worked in college. And I was fortunate to come from a middle-class background. But even my privilege did not protect me from the stress of having to return $831 in fees back to the university that at that point had paid me only $3,268, about 70% of which I had already spent on moving expenses, rent, electricity, and internet. After paying my primary living expenses and these fees, I was left with about $100 to pay for my other basic needs like food over a 2-month period. As an independent, frugal woman who entered the workforce at the age of 15, I was mortified that I could not make ends meet no matter how hard I tried. Because I feared the repercussions of violating my USF employment contract by finding another part-time job, I responded to this crisis by walking into BPL Plasma on Fowler Avenue. For USF administrators who have never been forced to sell pieces of their body in order to pay their bills, this is how plasma donation works. Your first trip to a new center takes hours. You have to bring documents proving your identity and place of residence, fill out a questionnaire about your medical history, submit to a physical examination, and have a sample of blood drawn. When this screening process is complete, your plasma is harvested for the first time. After waiting in a chair on the donor floor, sometimes for seconds, other times for hours, a large needle is painfully inserted into your arm. A machine extracts your plasma, and then the other components of your blood are mixed with saline and returned to your body. The saline feels grotesquely cold as it is reintroduced to your veins. Finally, you are paid. Plasma centers often pay new donors special promotion amounts for their first few donations. Then your payment is based on the amount of plasma that you can produce at your body weight. You can donate plasma twice in a 7-day period. Throughout my first year of graduate school, I donated plasma to multiple companies at multiple locations to capitalize on the special promotions. I was ashamed and did not tell anyone that I did this. Plasma donation side effects include dehydration, dizziness, fainting, lightheadedness, fatigue, bruising, discomfort, and infection. I dizzily walked to class and meetings wearing a sweater to conceal the bandage on my arm. I scraped by financially, but mentally and physically, I was struggling. Even after I vomited in February following a donation, I returned to the center the next week. I donated plasma regularly until I was willed $5,000 by my late grandmother. This inheritance has spared me from having to donate again. Most graduate students at USF do not earn a living wage. Even those who do are typically one broken laptop or car accident away from financial ruin. I, a childless white citizen with a middle-class background and no prior debt, find it impossible to make ends meet at USF without help. We should not have to take out loans, rely on familial support, or sell our body parts to survive. The USF administration's high fees harm the mental and physical health of graduate students, reducing our persistence and productivity. The USF administration's high fees bar members of marginalized groups from attending graduate school. The USF administration's high fees are particularly dangerous and insulting now that they are trying to increase our healthcare costs during a pandemic. I call on the USF administration to treat us with dignity and free us from the financial burden of these fees at the bargaining table. Our next speaker is Sam Shepard, GAU organizer and psychology PhD student.
In my PhD, I study manipulation tactics that powerful groups use to dominate others. And they all use the same playbook. One form of psychological manipulation is gaslighting, in which a person or group covertly sows seeds of doubt in a target individual or group, making them question their own memory, perception, or judgment to delegitimize the victim's beliefs. USF administration unapologetically uses these manipulation tactics to intimidate graduate assistants. I'm going to be quoting John Dickinson, who is the lawyer who represents USF administration and USF's interests during these bargaining meetings. So I will lay out pretty much how the story goes. The high power group oppresses the low power group. When the low power group speaks up, the high power group uses their anger to discredit them and accuses the low power group of attacking them. High power groups also attempt to sweet talk low power groups into submission. So here's a quote from John Dickinson, and I quote, "I will say this. I'm accustomed to organized labor wanting to personalize negotiations to attack the university or whoever is at the table or other leadership to make it personal rather than financial. We don't know where this anger is coming from here because I'll tell you, I know how much the university cares about y'all and the USF leadership cares about you," end quote. USF administration is pretending here to be offended that we are suggesting that forcing us to pay to work, giving us poverty wages, and charging us more for healthcare at the height of a pandemic is harming us. USF administration is accusing graduate assistants with our poverty wages and lack of institutional power of attacking USF leaders. High power groups also blame low power groups for the poor circumstances they find themselves in. And I quote, "And missing from your equation is that you chose this path to be able to work, to take time to get your degree," end quote. Graduate assistants did not choose to be overworked and underpaid. High power groups tell low power groups that they are lucky that they aren't being treated worse. And I quote, "It could be that there are pay cuts," end quote. USF tried to intimidate us here with a threat to cut our pay at the height of a pandemic. High power groups twist their mistreatment into seeming like it helps the low power group. And I quote, so this is in reference to our increase in annual health care insurance cost. "So you move from 159 to 179.90. And so that would, we believe, be a benefit for the bargaining unit members," end quote. USF administration is trying to make us pay more for healthcare during the height of a pandemic and are framing it as doing us a favor. High power groups accuse low power groups of being greedy and asking for too much. And I quote, "We're not going to agree to the cost prohibitive proposal that GAU has put on the table. We're not going to agree to it," end quote. So let me make this clear. Cost prohibitive means a cost that is excessively high. USF administration thinks that graduate assistants having basic working conditions is excessive. The morning after the bargaining session, I sat down at my desk to analyze the data from a project that I had been working on for over 2 years. And I should be excited to wrap up the final stages of this project. However, echoes of the meeting from the day before were ringing in my head. All I could do was cry. People are hurting right now. Instead of taking that into account, USF administration is using the pandemic as an excuse to exacerbate the hurt that some of their most vulnerable workers, graduate assistants at USF, are experiencing right now. USF administration has made me feel completely demoralized and stepped on. The fact that the university spent an ungodly amount of money on a union-busting lawyer with the sole purpose of making me feel this way is even more heartbreaking. The function of that meeting last week was to beat us down to give in to the university's terrible, immoral proposal. But I refuse to stay down when I'm beaten down. I refuse to give in to USF's gaslighting. USF works because graduate assistants do. USF graduate assistants are part of the Tampa Bay community. Universities are supposed to help the communities they are located in and the communities that they are a part of. We call on the Tampa Bay community at large to call and email USF Board of Trustees to demand the Board of Trustees find the money to invest in the public health and safety of over 2,000 graduate assistants before the fall semester, stop increasing our healthcare premiums during a pandemic, and stop making us pay to work amidst a global economic crisis. Contact information and a template letter can be found at the following link: usfgau.org/letter. So one more time, usfgau.org/letter. So we will now take questions from the press. Please use the raise your hand function on Zoom or request to speak in the chat. Thank you so much. I currently don't see any hands raised.
We've got one hand, McKenna Schuler.
Yeah, hi. My name is McKenna Schuler. I'm a freelance reporter for Creative Loafing. So I did have one question. Do you know how USF's response to graduate assistant unions or other unions in higher ed compares to those of other Florida public universities?
From what I understand,
Kelly, we can't hear you.
Oh,
Sorry.
it's Liz. Is Kelly speaking too?
Both of you were.
Oh, okay. Kelly, you can go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify the question. Are you asking about the coronavirus situation specifically or contract negotiations in general?
I guess more specifically in the last few months with the coronavirus pandemic.
So I would say that USF has been better than other universities in some respects and worse in other respects. When we called on them to go to impact bargaining to negotiate over the impacts of some of their decisions regarding the pandemic, they were surprisingly quick on that, which some other universities have not responded to such calls. But on the other hand, USF has repeatedly shown that it's willing to use the pandemic as leverage to step on us, to make our already meager working conditions in good times, to make them worse in bad times. They are using a textbook employer strategy where they never let a good crisis go to waste.
Liz, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I can try to add to that. I don't know if I can say a lot in regards to the pandemic, but I can say that in general, in terms of bargaining, I know that other universities in the state that also have GAUs get a lot more movement at the bargaining table than we do in many cases, especially recently with things like fee relief. And as far as I know, most lawyers that people deal with are not similar to this lawyer, John Dickinson, that we're working with, who is in general much more aggressive and rude than lawyers typically are. So that's USF's choice to hire that person to do this.
And I suppose so I'm an organizer with GAU. I can't speak for all GAs or all of the leadership of GAU, but in my opinion, no matter how much USF mitigates the risk of COVID, the risk is still there and people will die. And in my opinion, one person experiencing this terrible disease, this virus, even if they don't die, that's too much. There's so much pain and medical debt that is associated with this. And I think a lot of people are going, if we continue to go the way we are now, a lot of people will have to die before USF closes its doors. And in my opinion, one person dying from universities open is one too many. And Liz, for some reason, I can't see people's hand raises. I don't think I'm looking in the right place. So Liz, could you call on people? Sorry about that.
Oh, that's no problem. I can certainly do that. Sam, just so you know, if you want to look at that, you just have to check out the participants or check out the, yeah, but I don't see any other hands raised right now. McKenna's is still up. Did you have any further questions, McKenna?
No, I don't. Sorry, I'm not super Zoom savvy still.
That's just fine.
Thank you so much for your responses. I appreciate that so much.
No problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll take any other questions. If anyone would like to speak up or raise their hand.
So I know we have some press on the call. Thank you for being here. Divya from Tampa Bay Times, I believe someone from the Florida Phoenix is here. Rick Flagg, if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask a question, please feel free to do so, and any other press on the call. Rick said thanks. I'm good. Well, thank you, Rick, for being here.
Yes, thank you so much to all the press who are here. I know we all really appreciate it because we've felt very unlistened to recently. So it's nice that someone from the public in Tampa cares.
Divya said thanks as well.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we're gonna give it just one more minute here. If any of the press would like to speak, this is your moment. Please feel free to unmute yourself or type your question in the chat if you don't have audio access. We are recording this and we'll send it to our press contacts immediately after this ends so that you will have the real recording of the speakers. And we'll send a list of their names as well.
Oh, is that, so I see Roger, you raised your hand. Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, I'm not pressed, but I did have one question. Has there been, I haven't been following the staff union AFSCME. I don't know if y'all have seen what negotiations with them have been like, or if they're currently in contract negotiations, but do you have any sense of like how this is affecting staff or other faculty, you know, other workers on campus, like how the pandemic in general is affecting them and how USF is responding?
So I'll take this one. Okay. I'm not exactly sure, to be honest, how this has been going. I'm looking at the public meeting notice for what was supposed to be the AFSCME union's most recent bargaining session. That was supposed to happen on April 8th, but it was canceled and doesn't appear to have ever been rescheduled. We do know that the Police Benevolent Association, the union representing the police department at USF, was in negotiations at the same time, concurrently with USF telling us that they cannot talk money with us because they don't have their budget. They were making financial commitments to the University Police Department, increasing police officer pay by 1.5%, roughly $1,000 per officer.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roger. I suppose last call for questions. All right.
Matthew Wheat. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. This is a really good program. How can people who want to continue to follow this story and struggle, like stay in touch with like what's going on?
Yeah, so we post a lot on our Facebook. I would say follow our Facebook, but then one of my roles, I try to get people, like keep them in the fold and everything. So basically you could like provide me your email and I could like put you on our sort of short email list. If you're not, are you a GA at USF?
No, he's with the Tampa Bay Times.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm with Tampa Bay Students for a Democratic Society. So just an organizer, student organizer.
Okay,
So,
yeah, I will definitely try to get, do you have, are you on Facebook?
Yeah, I am. I'll
Okay.
find you.
Yeah, I'll
You
find
can
you.
find
Great.
me.
Yeah,
awesome.
awesome.
So in addition to Facebook, we also are active on Twitter, and we've been posting our bargaining sessions on YouTube, if you'd like to see the actual footage from how that goes.
Yeah, we'll warn you all that the recording from the last session, you can hear what was said, but there was some issue with our audio recording and it's a little difficult to listen to because there's an echo. But that's the only, otherwise all the other recordings are very clear and easy to listen to.
So, sorry, Chrissy, I see you have your hand up, but we originally wanted just to keep this for press. So I will reach out to you. Do you have Facebook? Okay, I'll reach out to you. But yeah, if the press don't have any more questions, we can close out this press conference. Thank you all so much for being here. Again, it really means a lot, and we couldn't do any of this without members of the press. So thanks so much.